Hello everyone, I'm Brazen Eagle, and thank you for joining me here. So today, we have a great article from The Guardian that tells us the truth. It is women who are responsible for the falling fertility rate. So, it's a woman's choice. Falling fertility rates are not the business of government by Gaby Hinsliff. The British birth rate is at a record low, but policymakers should steer clear of trying to influence this most personal of decisions. Because if they do something about it, they might just raise the birth rate in the end. Oh no. How many children should a woman have, and when? Well, to be factually honest with her, you should have at least 2.1 children per woman. But it's a trick question, of course, because the answer is nearly always none of your damn business. Well, it unfortunately is my business. There is no one perfect solution to this most personal and intimate of all dilemmas, no iron rule for getting it right, and yet that doesn't stop the world and its aunt seemingly having an opinion. Young women who steadfastly insist that they don't want children are knowingly told that they'll change their minds when they're older, even as they're begging doctors for sterilizations. Mothers of only children can look forward to years of nosy questions about when they plan to try for another, to the eternal distress of those who, for whatever reason, can't or won't get pregnant again. Oh no. Even sticking to the conventional 2 children doesn't make you immune to criticism, judging by the reaction when Prince Harry let it slip that baby Archie might be only getting 1 sibling. Gasp! Although the Duchess of Sussex clearly can't win with some people no matter what she does, the idea of a couple deliberately holding back for the sake of the planet, oh no, seems to trigger some kind of broader knee-jerk hostility. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Yet somehow, despite all this incessant collective nagging, we seem to be heading for a baby drought. Oh no. This week brought news of yet another fall in British birth rates, and for the first time they've fallen even among immigrant mothers whose tendency to have larger families has for years quietly propped up the nation's declining fertility rates. It's not just the British that are experiencing this. It's also the Americans, the Germans, the French, the Spaniards. Everyone in a first world nation is experiencing this. Perhaps some of that is down to tough economic times, with ludicrously high house rates forcing young couples to put off having children because they can't afford the space in which to even bring them up, or even the niggling Brexit uncertainty persuading some to wait until things feel more settled. I was a little hesitant if this was legal on the internet, or at least on my video sharing sites. Anyways, but it also reflects the fact that fertility rates are falling around the world as the most highly educated generation of women ever to reaching childbearing age wrestle with choices that simply weren't open to their grandmothers. Oh no. In the US, the birth rate has hit a 30-year low last year, while Japan suffered the biggest population decline on record. According to the UN, global population will peak at the end of the century before falling thereafter, transforming the way we think about our once teeming planet. Good news for the depleted natural resources maybe, but a red flag for economic growth. Although it should be said that a crucial driver of that growth for the last few decades has been the surge of women going out to work. I don't know about that so much. Funny how the economic upsides of female liberation never get quite so much coverage as the downsides, because it's almost always downsides. There is a danger to overreacting to all this, treating the decline in fertility like a lemming, like plunge off the cliff, rather than a fairly slow and steady downward trend that gives policymakers decades to adapt, and has led to a welcome fall in teenage pregnancies in the UK to boot. Isn't it great? We have less teenage pregnancies, but we're having so few pregnancies that we can't replace our population. Isn't this great? Yet falling fertility rates are becoming a dangerously hot political potato, as legitimate questions about how a shrinking pool of younger workers can support an expanding cloud of older ones start to become dangerously entangled with white supremacists' hysteria about the supposed failure of Christian communities to breed fast enough, or with the perennial right-wing anxiety about what women might seek to do with their own bodies if they had complete freedom to choose. I hate to break it to Gaby here, but women absolutely do have absolute freedom over their bodies. It's not even funny. They do. For some men, it seems the only thing scarier than the prospect of a broody woman trying to trap them into pregnancy is the idea of one willfully refusing to get into all of that. Ooh, Gaby, you're such a feminist. Men are not scared of women. Come Come on. For years, conventional wisdom has been that policymakers could bump up the birth rate by giving women money. By investing in cheap childcare and flexible working so that women didn't face such agonizing choices between work and motherhood. Oh no, just give women more money. For that is what leaving it too late so often boils down to in practice, not couples clean forgetting to have a baby, but women seeing what happens to other mothers in the office and not daring to risk a pregnancy until they feel more professionally established, by which time it's often harder to get pregnant. But now birth rates are tapering off even in Sweden with its world-beating parental leave, heavily subsidized nurseries, and an egalitarian culture that firmly encourages men to share the load with their exhausted partners because apparently men don't work. Neighboring Norway's Prime Minister, too, recently declared that the country needed more children, amid warnings that its welfare state model could otherwise be in jeopardy. Think of the welfare. Either the world of work still hasn't evolved far and fast enough to meet millennial parents' expectations, or something more fundamental is shifting. Next week, Channel 4 screens the fictional drama I Am Hannah, part of a series exploring female lives, which centers on a 30-something lawyer being nagged by all and sundry to get on with having children before it's too late. So far, so warily familiar, but what makes this one stand out from all the other stories, set in an egg-freezing clinic, is its central character's struggle to work out how far she desperately wants to be a mother, and how far it's simply what everyone else wants for her. Oh no. As Gemma Chan, the actress who both plays Hannah and contributed to the storyline, put it in a recent interview. I feel like we have more freedom these days, but we don't necessarily feel as free as we should to make different choices for ourselves. It's all about emotions. And that's where the policy debate starts scratching at the surface of dark feelings many parents can't even admit to themselves. Not regret exactly, so much as suppressed resentment about the inevitable sacrifices demanded by children and the occasional guilty daydream about what otherwise might have been. The more motherhood comes to be seen as a choice, rather than an unavoidable fact of female existence or some kind of great romantic destiny, the greater the anxiety both about making the wrong choice and about living with the ghost of the life not chosen. Trying to counter all that by nagging young women to knuckle down to it in order to avoid a future global pensions deficit is destined for the failure such emotionally tenured tactics deserve. She really is focused so hard on the economics, or supposed economics of this. Better perhaps to treat a shrinking population less like an annoying economic aberration to be corrected, and more like a riddle of human happiness. Let's just find a way to be happy. Who cares about the population? Where people are struggling to have the family lives they want, then of course government's role is to step in. Just give the government more power and money. They will create stable jobs, affordable homes, and family-friendly working conditions that make it possible. Ah, yes. Nothing like government intervention. But if millennials are simply thinking harder than previous generations did before having children, and if some people who would, in generations past, have felt railroaded into an unwanted family life are now finding the courage to remain child-free, well, that's so very different. Sometimes good governance, much like good parenting, is a question of knowing when it's really none of your business. Well, unfortunately, Gabby, what you do with your life, unfortunately, is part of my business. Because at the end of the day, men are unfortunately responsible for both themselves and for women. It's a tragedy, I know. So, at least Gabby understands that it is women that are not having enough babies. This is absolutely not controversial at all. It would be controversial if men could have babies and are choosing to not have them. But unfortunately, I have to live in reality and must accept the fact that people like me, males, cannot have babies. It's a tragedy, I know. So, this article opens up saying that society is trying to tell young women that they need to have babies to continue maintaining the country's population before they get too old when they can't have babies. With women not having babies, there won't be a country or people at all. It's not that controversial. It seems pretty basic. Now, of course, Gabby here even admits that there is a baby drought, and she apparently is from the UK, but there's a baby drought across all first world nations. Apparently, it has gotten so bad that even the new immigrants in the United Kingdom are not having as many babies as before. She thinks, though, that it is potentially caused by tough economic times or the whole Brexit situation, but unfortunately, that's not quite right. Let's go to the demography of the United Kingdom. Now, this is the UK, and the vital statistics: average population since 1900, live births, deaths, natural changes, crude birth rate, death rate, natural change, total fertility rate. We're really focusing on the total fertility rate, and to have a good replacement level of total fertility rate, you need to have 2.1. Now, throughout this graph, as we scroll down, you'll see various areas like over here in 1918, where the fertility rate was below 2.1. In that case, this case, 2.03 is because of World War I. And you'll find some other stuff in the late 1920s to the 1930s, which I think can probably be attributed to the Great Depression. But after the Great Depression, and even during World War II, the fertility rate came right back up to 2.1, and then maintained itself until when do we hit? When do we get below 2.1 and has never risen since then? 1973. It's been 46 years since the last time, actually 47 years since the last time the United Kingdom had a good enough fertility rate. You can't blame 47 years of hard economic times on a low fertility rate, or even Brexit. That just doesn't make sense. It's got to be something else. I wonder what it could be. Now, as a side benefit, Gaby brings up that this is good for the environment. That is yet to be seen. But she tries to bring up that women entering the workforce has helped the economy do better and better every year, even though that's not quite right either. Sure, having women make more money or earn more money sounds good, but if you increase the labor supply by 50 to 90% by letting women work, then what do you think is going to happen to jobs and wages? If you increase the labor supply by a huge amount, will that increase the number of jobs, or would that increase the wages of those jobs? This is a hard answer. But not really. There are only so many jobs out there. Trust me, there are really only so many jobs out there. And for every job that goes to a female, then a male does not get that job. That's important because women generally won't support men financially in a relationship. Sure, you can have a couple exceptions, but these exceptions don't prove the rule wrong. Men need resources to attract a female and provide for her in order to have a family. Women generally don't do that for men. Besides, here in the United States, just because we've added jobs to the economy for most of the Trump presidency so far, that doesn't mean more men are working. That's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, employment among prime age men has been declining and is now triggering some sort of alarms from Fox Business, as well as from Brookings.edu. Men in the labor force participation rate has been declining for the past 70 years. As more women work, less men can. There's always a give and take. As you have more women work in the workforce, then less men will be able to. Now, they don't always do exactly the same jobs, but overall, as more women enter the workforce, less men can find work. And that's a very rough generalization. And by this time, if you don't know that I work in generalizations, I don't know what you're doing on my channel. But anyways, Gaby has the audacity to continue to say that people are overreacting to the dying first world nations. She believes that it's okay for our countries to slowly die off in the chase for the eternal dollar. She doesn't care about what happens to her country if the population is so low that it can't defend itself in case of a major war. Gaby doesn't care about her society. She brings this up because she wants to attack anyone who's considered even remotely politically right-wing about solving this low fertility rate issue. And she tries to blame it on men being scared of women, but like I said earlier, Men generally aren't scared of women. Alright, if anything, this type of behavior from women is only going to push men to develop the artificial womb and develop other means to acquire sex. Women are choosing to be useless to men. Besides sex and children, what other benefits does a woman bring to a relationship? Now, it's interesting to see that she brings up the fact that European nations, like Sweden, have better, cheaper childcare and more flexible working hours than in the United States. Even in Sweden, which of course is one of the best parental leave practices nations, it has also heavily subsidized nurseries and has quite an egalitarian nature. Even that country is failing to replenish its native population. No matter how much money you throw at women to have babies, you still won't have a good enough fertility rate of 2.1. It'll never be enough. You can throw as much money as you want to fix an issue of something, but just because you throw money at it doesn't mean the situation is going to get better. Now, at the end, she even thinks that we should see the issue of a shrinking population as a riddle of finding human happiness. Oh yes, let us put our emotions before survival. That will make everything better. She even states that she wants to give the government more power so that it can control your life and give you a job so that you can have a family. But then again, if you live in reality, the government cannot create wealth. It can only redistribute it. The fact of the matter is this, though. Women are driving down the fertility rate. I don't like this answer, but I have to accept reality for what it is. I wish women could have babies and go to work. I wish women could go to work and then have the men become stay-at-home dads. I wish men and women were both equal. But that ain't realistic, and I must take reality and mold myself and society around it. Living in an idealistic world only lasts so long. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'm Brazen Eagle, and I hope you have a great day.